Lean in. Yes, you in the back, don't be shy. This one starts small like a splinter under a nail. The kind of small that becomes your whole world. Ready? Good. Because the lights are going down, and the clock is about to tick. She left for just a minute. Back before the kettle boils, she said, kissing his cheek with a soft pop that promised ordinary things. Groceries on the stairs. The ferns she overwatered. That ridiculous chime the front door made. Ding ding, come on in, which their landlord called character. She left for a minute, keys jangling like a laugh, and the hall swallowed her. He stood by the table thinking about nothing. You know, the kind of good nothing, where a day is just a day. He checked his phone. 60 seconds is nothing. He watched the counter roll down on a timer app he'd started when she teased him for being dramatic. Time me, she'd grinned. You'll survive. He liked the little numbers. Clean, square digits. 059, 058, 057. The bulb over the table fluttered. Not the panicky buzz of a dying light, but a quiet stutter. Tick, tick, tick that somehow synced with his throat. The second hand on the wall clock did a lazy sweep, then hesitated, then nudged forward like it was pushing through jelly. He laughed because minutes are elastic. Waiting makes them rubbery. But then, strange, his phone timer stopped at 047. Not paused. Not frozen. Stopped while the colon between numbers kept blinking. Blip, blip, blip. The colon blinked. The digits did not. Through the kitchen window, the afternoon thinned to a gray that didn't belong to the hour. Clouds stacked like heavy books. The kettle on the stove exhaled a breath it didn't have. He hadn't turned it on. He hadn't done anything. Why would he? She'd be back in a minute. The apartment door, half glass, half paint, showed him a hair-thin slice of hallway. The frosted pane was dusted with fingerprints in a pattern that matched hers. She liked to press her fingertip to it and say, "No ghosts. Thanks, we're full." Across the room, the little radio perked to life with a throat full of static. He hadn't touched that either. They kept it for the Sunday oldies, and because the dial was cheerful and round, like a toy. It hissed like it wanted to say something, then whispered, "Did you hear that? S-H-H, hello?" He pinched the bridge of his nose. The timer's still 047. He tapped the screen. Nothing. He shook it. The colon blinked like a heartbeat. The radio voice, thin, divided by snow, spoke with a mouthful of needles. "Can you hear me? I can't hold the minute." He turned. Who is this? Static unraveled into a sound he knew as well as his own. Her laugh. Not the one for strangers. The one for him. "You'll survive," she teased through the crackle. "Rowan." He breathed her name, and it fogged on the window glass without him moving. The kettle breathed again. The bulb ticked with his pulse. 047. He went to the radio and snapped it off. The hiss cut but didn't. It fell to the corners of the room, where the floorboards made quiet mouths. In the sink, the faucet didn't drip, nothing so ordinary. Instead, the shape of a drip trembled at the tip without falling, bead held in a perfect, waiting teardrop. He reached for the door, because of course he did, and stopped. On the far side of the frosted glass, someone's silhouette moved, a shadow like hers, except too careful. She never walked that careful. She bounded, elbow first, shoulder bumping the frame. This shape placed each foot with a metronome's patience. The knob did not turn. "Rowan," he called. The shape tilted its head in a way that said listening, but it wasn't her shape then. It was, how do I put this, slightly revised. The shoulder was lower, the neck longer, the head just a little too curious. You know when a child draws a person and doesn't quite get the proportions? That. He left the door and went to the clock instead, which had given up pretending to advance. The second hand hovered between 9 and 10, a quivering wish. He tapped the glass. The second hand stuttered backward a millimeter, like a reverse gasp. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered without hello. The line carried smothered breaths, then a voice dry with sleep or fear or long storage. His own. "Don't open the bathroom," it whispered. "No matter what you hear. If you have to, put towels at the The call scraped into static, his own voice again, tangled with older versions of itself. She left for a minute, don't. The line died with a soft tell like a tongue bitten. He stared at the bathroom door. The apartment was too small to pretend the door wasn't there. It had a stained glass panel the landlord swore was real art, a mosaic of river blue triangles that caught light. It was dim now, the colors muddied, but something behind it, something, shifted like a hand pressing a palm to milk. Hello, a voice called from behind the bathroom door. Her voice.
Perfect this time.
Bright, annoyed, expensive as real sunshine. Babe, can you open? My key is stuck. Every hair on his arms rose with cold, like 1,000 tiny periscopes. He did not open it. He said carefully, You left your keys on the table. Silence flickered. Then, very funny, she said. Open up. The doorknob twitched. Not turned. Twitched, like a muscle beneath skin. He took a towel from the rack and folded it against the bottom of the bathroom door because his own voice had asked him to, and he trusted himself more than a minute. That didn't move. The towel slid under with a reluctance like friction had learned new ideas. Something wet kissed the top edge of the towel. The fabric darkened, not soaked, just noticed. The radio snapped on again, all by itself. A different station now, a commercial jingle wheezing like it had been underwater. For prices so fine, it'll stop your time. It sang cheerfully, followed by a laugh track that went on one beat too long, and then 2, and then 10. He ripped the plug. The radio kept singing. He set it back down, and the song paused mid-note, the way a breath can live in a room without lungs. The front door's frosted glass showed the shape still standing there, patient as a polite predator. The kettle on the stove began a thin, high keen, then fell silent like it was shy about being noticed. He checked his timer again. 0:47. He closed the app. Opened it. 0:47. He turned the phone off. The screen stayed on, as if the phone had decided that being off was a team sport and it was tired of playing. Behind the bathroom door, Rowan knocked. 3 little taps. He pictured her, as she had looked this morning, hair tied up, the white sweater with the loose shoulder. The freckle over her lip like a punctuation mark. Babe, she said through the door now softer. I think I dropped my phone in the sink. He did not say, there's no water running. He did not say, you said you'd be back before the kettle boils. He put his palm to the stained glass and felt a cold that belonged to basement floors and school hallways after midnight. The glass pushed back minutely, as if a palm lay against the other side, trying to match him. His breath fogged the mosaic. For an instant the colors brightened, then fell dull again. Behind his hand, another hand matched his. Only his fingers were not as long as those. He drew his hand away. In the living room, the fern spilled its leaves across the windowsill, like the hem of a dress. A moth had found its way inside and flirted with the lampshade, which thumped gently, as if breathing. There were faint footprints on the ceiling. Don't look at me like that. I'm only telling you what he saw, small, bare, tiptoeing from light to light, smudged as if walked in ash. He thought, I will be reasonable. I will get my shoes and my coat, and I will open the front door, and I will walk into the hall and go down the stairs and into the daylight and call her and laugh about all this. He thought it like a shopping list, simple, doable. He took one step toward the door, and the apartment, listen to me, the apartment stretched. Not in a cartoon way. In a hush. The distance from table to door grew, by one careful pace. He took another step, it grew again. He did not test it a third time. The hall beyond the frosted pane brightened, like someone had turned on a light that was not connected to the building's wiring. The shape on the other side of the glass raised an arm. It waved with correct enthusiasm. It had too many joints to the wave. It wobbled at the wrist, then the forearm, then something between elbow and shoulder that no anatomy class would bless. It touched the glass and left a smear where a palm should be, except the smear had 6 finger lengths and one haloed circle where a thumb might have been if thumbs were circular and wet.
His phone buzzed again.
Another unknown number, except this one was his own number, as if he were calling himself from nowhere. He answered. Open the front door, his voice said urgently. Not the bathroom. The front door. Open it before the minute finishes. In the background, something moaned, low and long, like a whale trying to hum in a closet. We didn't last time, his voice added. We thought we could wait it out. A hiss of breath. She's still in the stairwell. The stairwell holds time differently. It's safer than. The line filled with that same laugh track from the radio. His own voice flinched. Go, it said, and then, tell her I tried. And then the line cut with a desperate silence, as if it had bitten itself to stay quiet. He put his hand on the front door latch. The shape beyond cocked its head farther, interested. He slid the deadbolt, clack. He hesitated. He heard steps above them. Or below. Or both, like ladders dropped through a well. The apartment building was old and sound traveled weirdly. Everyone knew that, but this was a new kind of weird. Footsteps that arrived a second before they were made. Behind him, the bathroom door sighed his name. Eli. He closed his eyes. Not that door. His hand tightened. He turned the latch. The front door didn't open. Not because it was stuck, not because of anything simple. It didn't open because, when he tried, a second door revealed itself, nested inside the first like a shell. Same glass, same paint, same handle. He recognized a trick when he saw one. He tried the new handle. The new bolt slid, clack, revealing a third.
And a fourth.
Like a magician's scarf, except each layer had faint, greasy prints that were not theirs. Each inner door had more of them. The handles grew colder with depth, wet cold from caves and hospital sinks. He pulled back. The phone timer, 0:46. You heard me. It had lost a second. Not forward, down. He looked through the frosted glass, as if looking and being looked at were equal. The shape outside made the slightest move, as if it saw him see it. It lifted its face to the pane. Where its eyes should have been, the frost glowed, two pale ovals like cold moons. Then one of the ovals widened, unhitching its chill to an idea he didn't want. It pressed something soft to the glass. It was like a kiss, if kisses had weight and temperature, and a sound like a glove turned inside out. He stepped back and felt the living room floor tilt toward the bathroom, like a ship toward a storm. The towel under the bathroom door was darker now, the damp seeping like a map of a continent being drawn from the edges. From within, a little trickle of noise, like whispers listening to themselves. He tried the window. The sash wouldn't budge. The street below was paused, a bus with its door open, a woman with her hand reaching into her purse forever, a cyclist tilted into his turn like he'd become an ornament. A pigeon hung mid-flight, head cocked in what would have been disdain. The sky flattened like a painting you weren't meant to look at too closely. His phone buzzed one more time. Don't answer, said a voice from under the table. He flinched so hard his teeth clicked. He crouched. The space under the table was only shadow and chair legs. Who said that? Something reluctant peeled itself from the underside of the table like a sticker coming loose. A small smear of darker dark shifted, then resolved into, oh, this is going to sound strange, a knot of shadow with the wrong number of corners, slow as sap. It said, in a child's voice drawn across a wire, you won't like what he has to say.
Who?
The clock, it said solemnly. It pointed, by making one corner longer, toward the wall clock, whose hands still hovered.
He lies.
He wants you to hurry. The shadow pressed itself back to the underside of the table as if embarrassed by its own existence. He whispered because sometimes you whisper to keep the word from being real. Who are you? The corner pointed at the bathroom, then at him, then made a wavering circle in the air like a zero. I'm what doesn't fit, it said, and stuck itself in place again with a quiet suck. Something moved in the fern. Not a moth this time. A jointed leg, no bigger than a paperclip, delicately tested air. Then another, then none. The lampshade's thump picked up tempo. Thud, 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 thud. The bulb brightened until the filament inside looked like a hair caught in amber, then dimmed, leaving an afterimage on his eyes of something he chose not to describe. He went to the sink because normal tasks were bridges and ran the water because people run water when they don't know what else to do. It didn't run. The bead at the tip of the faucet trembled harder, stretched, quivered into a thin, hanging thread, and then rewound into itself like an apology. From the hall, a sound of steps going past their door, slowing, stopping. A whisper of cloth against stone. Then the door chime, the stupid, cheerful one, the landlord's favorite, rang. Ding ding, come on in. Eli looked at the door. He hadn't opened it. The latch was still. The inner doors nested like Russian dolls. The chime rang again, as if a hand had reached from the hallway side, inside the door, to trigger it manually. Ding 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 ding. The pattern formed a rhythm like a code. Morse, almost. He didn't know Morse. He knew panic, though, and it was learning his name in new fonts. Behind the bathroom door, the thing wearing Rowan's voice began to hum. Not a tune. A scale, practiced and patient. La, 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 finding its notes. It hummed higher until the stained glass sang with it, a thin whistle of vibrating color. He picked up the chair, the one she'd found on the curb and called vintage, with her mouth tilted at the corner, and wedged it under the front door handle. He went to the bedroom and grabbed the heavy quilt they used in winter, pulling it across the bathroom threshold, layering it over the towel like he was dressing a wound. The damp climbed the fabric, hungry and polite. His phone buzzed a final time, but with a new sound, the little chirrup he'd assigned to her. The name on the screen, Rowan. A picture of her taken last spring, eyes narrowed against wind, hair loose, the freckle living its small life. He answered. Where are you? Stairwell, she panted. The light burned out in the landing. My key, did you change the lock? Eli, it's weird, my watch. Her breath moved fast as a spoon in a jar. Open up. He looked at the shadow behind the frosted glass. Knock, he said, picking a rule because rules made rooms safer. 3 times. From the phone, knock, knock, knock. In perfect time, clear, bell pure on the wood. From the frosted glass, nothing. He went to the door. The shadow beyond was still, like a breath held badly. He turned the first handle. The second. The third.
4, 5.
He unpeeled doors like skin from citrus. The air grew colder, brighter, thinner, as if he were ascending something invisible. He came to the last of the inner doors, which had no handle at all, only a keyhole with no key. Beyond it lay the ordinary hallway. He was sure of it. He could smell their neighbor's cheap rose detergent. He whispered into the keyhole, say something only I would know. From the phone. You cried at the end of The Iron Giant, but you said it was allergies. You hate olives but pretend to like them because everyone else does. You cross out your own name when you make lists. You took my middle name by accident on the rental form and won't admit it to anyone. And then, as if warned by something old, she added with a shaky laugh. Time me? 0:45. The bathroom hummed higher, the stained glass shivering, the damp creeping. The lampshade thudded. The ceiling footprints turned at the light fixture, as if circling, and for a second, just a second, the bulb bulged like a heart under paper. He bent to the last keyhole. The air on the other side was steadier. His own breath came back to him through the hole, warmer than this room deserved. On 3, he said. From the phone. 1, 2. But then, over the line, under her count, a second tone of her voice, submerged, distorted, said quietly, urgently, Don't let what's behind the bathroom door hear you open the other door. He froze. The humming stopped. The bathroom went quiet like a thought held underwater. From under the table, the shadow whispered. It heard. Something put its ear to the bathroom door. Do you know the sound of someone pressing skin to wood? That soft, sticky kiss, that shhhlp? It listened. Then a fingernail, or something equivalent to the idea of a fingernail, dragged down the other side of the stained glass, carving a line of cold, so neat it squeaked. From the phone, Rowan's breath hitched. Eli? Here, he said. He put his eye to the keyhole of the last door. He saw, oh, this always gets me. He saw the ordinary hall. The scuffed carpet. The red exit sign, painting the air. The place where the light had burned out, leaving a neat cone of shadow. In the cone, a figure he knew like habit. Her. Bent to find her keys. She looked up toward him, as if she could see through the wood, straight down the keyhole into his eye. Her smile was the small one, the private one, the we're fine one. He reached for the non-existent handle because love makes hands clumsy and determined. Behind him, the bathroom door made a noise like a mouth opening. Not a creak. An opening. His phone dimmed, brightened, dimmed. The timer 0:44. On 3, he whispered, because that's what they did. 1. The shadow beneath the table pulled its corners in tight, becoming a hard little knot. 2. The lampshade stopped thumping, and in the quiet he heard, far away or very close, the heavy wet sound of something moving itself into a better listening shape. 3, he said, and the front door lock, not the one beneath his hand, the long, absurd nest of locks, but the simple lock that belonged to the world they had rented between them, clicked from the hallway side. The last door's keyhole breathed in, and just before he pulled, something leaned at the bathroom's stained glass with all its attention and whispered, in Rowan's voice and not hers at all, "I'll be just a minute." Lean closer. No, closer than that. The kind of close where you can hear your own breath judging you.
Good.
Because when the last lock breathed in, the apartment did something rooms aren't supposed to do. It listened back. Eli felt the breath on his eye through the keyhole, warm as a living mouth. He pulled the final door, and it yielded, not swinging so much as deciding to be elsewhere. Wood blinked, paint remembered a different year. On the other side, the hallway held in a taut, familiar stillness. The dead bulb roasted a small cone of shadow on the landing. The red exit sign smeared the air with color, like a wound trying to teach itself about light. Rowan stood in that cone, keys fanned in her hand like a cheap saint's halo. Her smile was the small one they saved for each other. We're fine, we're fine. And for a beat, the world dared to believe her. Then the bathroom door behind him exhaled. Not wind, a decision. Don't look back, the thing under the table advised, small and serious, knotting itself tighter. If you look back, you'll name it. Rowan took one step forward. The floor between them stretched half a step in reply, the kind of slick, creeping elongation that makes you think you misremember room. She stopped. Her keys chimed once, twice, tiny bells clinging to ordinary. "Why are there more doors?" she asked softly. Eli did not say because the minute got teeth. He stepped over the hinge of the last door, into the hallway, into air that felt like the city he knew, even if it stared at him too hard. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. Behind him, the bathroom hummed a single note, so pure the stained glass sang yes. Rowan flinched. "What's?" "Don't," he said. "Don't speak to it." "To what?" He didn't answer. Answers feed certain things. They moved together. He noticed everything and nothing. The black mark on the wall where someone had dragged a sofa in, the thumbprint of the neighbor kid in the paint from when the landlord let him help, the faint groove in the carpet made by a stroller from tenants gone years now. Their building's biography lay in scuffs and dents, you know, the honest diary of living, but today it all felt recopied in an unfamiliar hand. The moment Rowan's fingers touched his, something clicked inside the apartment, one of the inner doors relatching itself. Another and another, a neat series like knuckles cracking in order. The front door's frosted glass regarded them with that damp curiosity. The bathroom hummed lower, like a voice clearing its throat to make itself more pleasant. "Move," Eli whispered, and they did, feet remembering speed as a religion. He tugged her toward the stairs. The hallway stretched too, petulant, then side ascent. "You have to count," Rowan said in a rush. "It only lets you when you count." "To what?" "Steps," she said, eyes enormous. Out loud. He didn't want to feed anything his voice, but her certainty was a door in its own right. "1," he said. His voice came back to him from the stairwell, 111, like a schoolyard full of secrets repeating themselves. They moved. The stairwell smelled like old dust and lemon cleaner and, underneath, a wet metal tang like someone had mopped with rain. 2, Rowan said. Her voice echoed truer than his, as if the stairwell preferred her tone. 3, they said together. With each number, the steps arrived underfoot obediently, and for a splinter of hope he thought, "It's working." Then the building remembered it was trying to swallow them. On 7, the landing flipped, nothing dramatic, just a slide aside and stretched sideways. The banister tried to be longer than it was. A framed notice about recycling peeled around the corner, its pushpin migrating as if the picture were a snail. The exit sign flickered like a semaphore. Red, dark, run. Don't look at the windows, Rowan murmured. They make copies. He didn't ask what that meant. He glanced anyway because that's what people do around rules. The window on the landing showed the city's skin, brick and sky and those deadly little rectangles of light, and also, faintly, a double scene, Eli and Rowan, years older, walking this same stairwell in reverse, weary and thin, a bandage on Eli's wrist, a small red ribbon tied in Rowan's hair like a private funeral. They didn't see him. They looked at the stairs as if the stairs might judge them. 8, Eli said, voice smaller. His phone pulsed in his pocket. He had forgotten it. Yes, time can do that. He checked because impulse is a disease. The timer read 0:44, except, pay attention, the colon had stopped blinking. It was a single, unkind stare. Under the digits, a thin gray message, sync lost. The letters looked as though they'd been engraved by a dentist. Don't sync with it, Rowan said, as if reading the screen through his thumb. That's how it eats thinking. What is it? Eli asked because questions are how we volunteer. Rowan's mouth tightened. It's what was hungry when they built the first clocks, she said, so matter-of-fact it scared him worse than any scream. Eli, she squeezed his hand so hard his palm clicked. On 9, we switched to whispering. 9, he breathed, and the stairwell accepted the new volume with a smug shiver. 10, the air pressed closer, as if kissing their cheeks with cold. Behind them, up on their floor, the bathroom door opened. No creak. No slam. Just an arrival, the way a dark thought arrives. Everywhere at once. Eli didn't turn. He heard something soft roll across their apartment floor, soft like a sock lost behind a dresser, soft like a pet toy sliding under a couch. It hit the front door's nested locks with a polite tap. Then another tap. Then a series of taps, like fingertips counting.
It was counting them.
11, Rowan whispered, and they descended as if the stairs were a ladder over an ocean they couldn't afford to fall into. Something peered down the stairwell from above. Eli didn't see it, not directly, but the light changed, a scoop taken out of brightness, a shape subtracted. The air went tight, as if it were swallowing laughter. The stairwell's shadows arranged themselves like a jury. On the first floor landing, Mr. Valtos's door stood ajar. He'd been here forever, a widower with a mess of plants and a TV that spoke in Greek. From inside came a faint game show applause loop, trapped mid-hand clap. On the wall beside his door hung a taped Polaroid, Mr. Valtos and Rowan at the building's holiday party, both wearing paper crowns, his hand a respectful hover near her shoulder. The picture, which had once been cheerful and a bit blurry, was now sharp, cruelly sharp, each glitter fleck a tiny glass eye. Rowan's laugh was fixed open too wide, and in the glossy corner of her left eye a small shape reflected that hadn't been in the room then, a tall oval of absence, smiling with no mouth. Keep going, she said through her teeth. He obeyed. Obedience saved lives. Sometimes. 13, Eli said. A voice from below answered, tender as a lullaby. No. They stopped. The voice had the patience of old tile. You skipped, it scolded gently. You said 11. Then you thought 12 and didn't breathe it, and now you say 13. That's not how it's work. Rowan squeezed his hand until his knuckles burned. Apologize, she whispered. Say the missing number. Eli's tongue had become a stone. 12, he managed, and the stairwell sighed approval, a grandmother reknitting a dropped stitch. Far below, a door unlatched clicked itself, as if the building were rewarding his manners. They kept moving. The air changed temperature in increments that didn't match floors. A wave of oven warmth breathed up, followed by the refrigerated breath of clinics. The metal handrail was sweaty, then powder dry, then tacky, with glue that wasn't glue. On one turn, his palm slid over something papery tied tight around the rail, a hospital bracelet, looped and empty, stamped with row, and the rest torn away. Did you? Eli began. Don't claim it, Rowan said quickly, pulling his hand away. If you touch it twice, it knows your shape. He put his hand to his chest where he could feel his heartbeat insist on being independent of minutes. How long? He started, and then, because truth braves us better than we brave it, he asked, how long were you gone? Rowan's jaw moved like a letter being folded. I left for a minute, she said lightly, the way a root breaks brick. Down for tea. The stairwell blinked. It asked me to pick a number. I said 3 because it felt lucky. It said, not today, and took me to a landing that wasn't ours. I heard our kettle boiling through the wall like a neighbor. She looked up toward their floor. Her eyes glistened in the exit red. At first it was just odd. The railing had carvings that weren't there. The light made a circle like a wedding ring. Then it started making offers. What kind of offers? The kind you take when minutes become the kind of long that hurts, she said softly. Shortcut offers. Mercy offers. It said it could put me back as if I'd never left, except I'd forget something, and we wouldn't realize until we needed it. What did you? She grinned, raw and fierce. I told it I'd forget plenty on my own. They reached the lobby floor. The fire door, heavy, butter-colored, dented by deliveries, stood closed, but the little square of wired glass showed a slice of the foyer. Mailboxes like tiny metal teeth, the buzzer panel blinking its friendly lie. The street beyond that, the bus pinned in a forever turn, the pigeon contempt locked mid-flap. If the world outside was a photograph, at least it was a good one. 14, Eli said. The lobby clock over the mailboxes swung its pendulum obligingly, except instead of a brass bob it had a small round mirror for a heart. In the mirror, he didn't see himself. He saw the apartment's bathroom, lights off, door open to a mouth of colorless fog, and within that fog, 2 long hands rooting gently in the towel and quilt like a blind person learning a stranger's face. The fingers moved as if tasting. Rowan slapped the push bar on the fire door. It didn't move. The building, thrilled by an audience, put on a play. The bar waited like a dog taught a new trick. We should have enough numbers, she said. How many does it want? It wants the right ones, she said. This door wants. She closed her eyes, listening with her whole face. Then she said, say the year we met, but not as a number. Eli swallowed. 2019? The push bar warmed under their palms, then cooled, then pretended it hadn't heard. Rowan frowned. No, it wants the event. It doesn't believe we were more than time. Eli's mouth went dry. He hated this part of himself, but he couldn't help it. He tried to be clever. The year of badly mixed sangria, he said. At Maya's rooftop. The bar quivered. The lock coughed, unlatching a hair. Something upstairs shifted with annoyance, like a sleeper yanking a blanket back. More, Rowan urged. It wants hunger. The year I realized you put olives on my plate because you didn't want me to look uncool, he said. The bar slid a half-inch. The lobby hummed a pleased chord. Too pleased, like flattery had a mouth. The year, Rowan whispered. We promised not to name our first plant, just in case. Eli laughed, one bright, surprising note, and the bar gave like a throat. The door opened. The lobby was faithful, mildew and rubber mats, the scent of yesterday's mail. The buzzer panel blinked its little red decimal points. The elevator, chronically sullen, displayed an E for error, which was comforting in its honesty. On the far wall, a corkboard held flyers whose staples had rusted into curious constellations. Need a cat sitter? Free couch, no one wanted it. Time bank exchange, trade an hour for an hour. Someone had drawn a smiley face over that one, then crossed out the smile with 2 thin, deliberate lines. Eli's timer vibrated again, without moving. 0:44. Unsympathetic. The lobby doors to the street waited with their polite brass handles. Outside, the bus's driver stared straight ahead into his long turn. A woman with a purse hung forever between stride and stop. A cyclist's scarf froze in a neat diagonal of motion. The pigeon's eye, a gunmetal bead, looked right through the glass at Eli like it had all the time in the world. Which, to be fair, it did. "Ready?" Rowan asked. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to say anything other than what he said. If we step out, do we unstick their time too? Or do we get stuck outside instead? Rowan's throat bobbed. If we ask the door that, it'll answer. But we don't want it to.
No.
He looked back at the stairwell. The exit signs read pooled like a tongue. Far above, on their floor, the bathroom sang a fragment of melody, la, la, then stopped as if embarrassed at being heard practicing. The buzzer panel sizzled suddenly, like fat in a pan. A voice through its cheap speaker sanded itself into their ears. "Deliveries," it said brightly. "Got a package." Its cheer was a rubber mask over nothing. "Special delivery for," the panel clicked like a throat searching for the word. "For the towel," it said at last, delighted with its choice. Rowan's eyes flashed. "Ignore it," she said. "We don't sign for ghosts." Eli nodded, wishbone brittle. "What about the neighbors?" he asked quietly. "Should we?" A door down the lobby hall popped open an inch. Mrs. Coyle's eye blinked at them in the crack, like a tired moth. "Is it over?" she asked, hopeful and hoarse. Rowan stared. "You see us?" Mrs. Coyle considered this, then closed her door again and slid the chain. In the slot where her mouth would be, the wood said, "I hear everything." "Don't knock," Rowan said to Eli. "She's been in the minutes since Nixon. She likes it there." He reached toward the street door. The brass handle felt like a coin that had met too many pockets. He paused, hand on it, breathing as if the air were a password. "We could run," he murmured. "Make for the corner, call someone, smash a clock with a hammer, I don't know." From the stairwell above came the sound of water, deciding to be a person. I know. How does water decide anything? But this did. The wet slid across their apartment's floor in a careful, knees and palms patience, a toddler's first crawl reinvented by a flood. It reached the top of the lobby stairwell and peered over the rail, as if learning down. The pigeon outside dipped a wing a millimeter. That was all, but it was a movement, and it was new. The bus's door twitched. The woman's purse strap sighed closer to her shoulder. The cyclist's scarf tried a little for wind. "Do you feel that?" Eli breathed. Rowan didn't answer. She was looking at the mailboxes. In Box 2C, a unit vacant since the painter fell, something moved. Not mail. A finger, pale and nail-shy, curled out of the slot, feeling the air like a mole waking from hibernation. It found the brass and petted it with a gratitude that made Eli's stomach argue with gravity. Another finger joined it. Together they tried an old habit, knock, anyone home, and then retreated, embarrassed by failure. "Outside," Rowan said.
Now.
They pushed through the vestibule to the glass. The street gathered itself like a long breath. That's when the reflection betrayed them. In the glass, Eli and Rowan were not holding hands. In the glass, Rowan was slightly behind him, eyes wide at his back like a portrait of trust. Eli's reflected mouth formed a word he hadn't yet said. Run. The reflected bus had already completed its turn. The reflected pigeon was gone. The reflected scarf lay on the ground like a shed stripe. "Don't follow mirrors," Rowan whispered. "They want to lead." He nodded and focused on the real brass. He pulled. The door didn't open outward. It opened inward, toward them. That was wrong. Fire code wrong, architecture wrong, memory wrong. But it opened. And as it did, the thin seam between door and world filed itself like a violin string. The note slid higher, purer, dizzy as high windows. For one heartbeat, the city moved again.